Hey guys, this is Dawson Discussions, and my name is Nathan L. Dawson Jr. In this video, I'm going to provide my personal commentary on the 2020 U.S. presidential election, so stay tuned. So, many people were shocked by the previous cycle presidential election results. Others were not. Some are glad of the results, and of course, others are not. So, some of you are probably wondering who I voted for those who are close to me. Well, I voted for nobody. So this is my history with the U.S. presidential elections and my personal political views. So the very first election that I vaguely remember was the 2000 election between Bush and Gore. I was getting ready to start my first grade year in school. Now, the second election that I remember a little bit more was Bush versus Kerry in 2004. I was starting my fifth grade year. And the third election was in 2008 with Obama versus McCain. I was starting my freshman year in high school or ninth grade. I originally thought that having Obama as president was a good sign and race relations was easing up because Obama, a black person, won the presidency. The next election was the one that I started to follow a little bit more closely by watching the news, Obama versus Romney in 2012. At that time, the election took place shortly after my 18th birthday, and I was getting ready to enter the delayed entry program to the United States Navy. So around that time in 2012, during the 2012 U.S. election, I wasn't enthusiastic about voting because I started to study some of the previous presidential elections. You know, the whole entire 2000 election fiasco with Bush v. Gore. I also know that the larger third-party candidates like the Libertarian, Green, and Constitution Party, and stronger polling independent candidates. And those independent candidates are candidates not affiliated with a political party. They were not invited to the debates. And because to me, I didn't think that was fair to not include the independent and libertarians and Greens and Constitution Party candidates. Also, I started to study the history of the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. Once I studied the history and did a little political quiz, I was leaning more fiscally conservative, meaning I wanted pro-free markets, lower taxes for everyone, because I wanted the fair tax program to pass, and etc. And I was liberal on most social issues, like separation of church and state. I'm not religious at all personally. I'm not a Bible thumper. I'm not a Christian. I'm not a Muslim. I'm not a Jew. I'm none of that. At that time, I was also pro-choice when it came to the to reproductive rights. I also wanted to invest in science, and I didn't care too much about the LGBTQ issues because at that time I was like, okay, well, marry whoever you want. I didn't want gun control because the Second Amendment, and I wanted tighter control on immigration because how it affected the black community. I also want electoral reform, have election day as a federal holiday, enact approval voting or IRV instead of runoff voting. I also want a proportional representation in the legislature in order to counter the effects of gerrymandering. And I also had a non-interventionist foreign policy, as in not being a war hawk, not being the world's police, but still have a strong military and an outside intelligence community. The whole entire Teddy Roosevelt speak softly but carry a big stick. Had I voted in the 2012 election, I probably would have voted for the Libertarian Party, since my political views at that time was closer to that party. So, the very first presidential election I was eligible to vote in was the 2016 election, Trump versus Clinton. I was just coming back from my first deployment in the Navy. Neither candidate was deserving of my vote. Even if I had voted, once again, I probably would have voted for the Libertarian Party since my views at that time was close to that party. In between 2013 and 2016, I gave up completely on U.S. politics because, for one, they don't include strong polling independent candidates, as in candidates that are not affiliated with a particular party, and they also do not include third-party candidates like the Libertarian, Constitution, and Green Party in those presidential debates. For number two, I was onto the elite or the powers that be and came to the conclusion that they control the elections because they buy up the whole entire election, while the average voter, like you and I, don't have enough money or the wealth to do so. So the average voter can actually get what they want politically. So what I mean by this is the whole entire Citizens United versus the FEC decision and all these super PACs that's actually buying up the elections. And number three, I was also heavy into esotericism and the occult at that time, even to this very day. The esoteric and occult are very advanced topics for me to talk to about towards regular people. So for those who don't really know too much about it, but let's just say that Both terms relate to ancient secrets and inner knowledge. Only the select few have the special knowledge or interest. And to those who don't really understand it, they'll label it as conspiracy theories. To the religious, they'll say it's Satanism or devilish or evil, even though it's not evil or satanic. And at least they're also well versed in esoteric and occult. So essentially, it's in the mainstream media, it's in history, it's in politics, it's even in religion. You just got to train your mind and eyes to see what I mean. With that, you must have an open mind, and then if you don't have an open mind, or if you just quickly dismiss it, then you'll never understand where I'm coming from with that. And of course, that's a subtopic that I'll probably do a video or post later on. So the only thing that changed my political views as of 2020 is that I shifted a little bit to the right and ended up on the moderate side on social issues as a whole because of certain things that was going on in the country at that time. So my views on the economy and foreign policy are mostly the same. So now we had the 2020 U.S. presidential election. Again, leading up to this election, I started my financial education, learning about stocks, bonds, real estate, commodities, learning about businesses, business planning, investing, alternative investing, like learning about investing in startups, kind of like how the TV show Shark Tank, how they invest. I also realized that the median black wealth is heading to zero by the 2050s, which is about 30 years from now. I started listening to Dr. Claude Anderson. I looked up Malcolm X's speeches on politics and learned about black business history to inspire me to start my own businesses. So that made me shift a little bit more towards black politics, as in thinking of ways to empower the black community as a whole, like practicing group economics per Dr. Claude Anderson's book called Powernomics, which is this book right here, Powernomics, versus being actively involved in the U.S. broad-based politics. So essentially, my broad-based politics, like the whole entire big picture politics, is fiscally conservative. You know, pro-markets, lower taxes for everyone, critical of the Federal Reserve, promotion of small businesses, and etc. To being socially moderate, I move a little bit to the right on social issues, then land in a moderate space, but I still hold it on interventionist foreign policy. But my personal interests and my identity politics side, should I want to go that route, is Powernomics. Again, in a book written by Dr. Claude Anderson, Powernomics, the National Plan to Empower Black America, written in the year 2001. That's actually my identity politics that I would actually want to head into, because, you know, history and I could probably do another video about why I want to venture into identity politics that way for empowering Black America. But for now, I just want to like explain like about why I didn't like vote in this election and then whatnot. And of course, that's my political views in general. Okay, now why won't I identify as a Black Democrat, and why I wouldn't vote Democrat at all, even if I wasn't aware of, you know, the lead buying up the election to then studying the esoteric and occult, and now they actually practice that onto the world. You know, people say that Trump was dangerous. I should have helped in voting Trump out, to look at the big picture, stop being selfish, and stop being involved in identity politics, at least on the conservative side. But that means that I will have to vote Democrat, which I am not anxious to be and probably don't ever want to be. And I have a couple of reasons, or maybe a little bit more than a couple of reasons why I don't relate to the Democrat Party. Because for one, I'm not really into the LGBTQIA plus movement. You can love who you want, but that's your business. Can't really relate to that community at all because I'm not LGBTQIA plus person. I also do not support pedophilia's rights, which is actually gaining traction and is being included into the LGBTQIA plus movement. For number two, abortion kind of makes me uncomfortable because I think it seems that they really want to kill black babies the most. Margaret Sanger and eugenics had an adverse impact on the black community in history. And also, don't forget about the forced sterilization, which is a medical procedure that allows people who undergo the procedure to not have kids anymore. And it was used on black people because there's like racial laws against black people. Not to mention, I'm also hearing things that there's sterilization clinics and abortion clinics. It's more in the poorer neighborhoods, and racially, black people are the poorest ethnic group in America. And now I also hear that there are fertility clinics in the white neighborhoods because ever since the 1950s, the white race in America, their population is going down because they're not fertile, so they can't really have a whole lot of kids. Also, I don't think that close the borders make you a racist person, since I think most countries around the world they actually do it. That, and I also say that illegal immigration has an adverse effect on the black community. Four, I see the Me Too movement as a threat to the safety of the black man who can actually be accused of anything by anyone and end up in prison because somebody decided to tell a lie. Remember the case with Emmett Till where he whistled at a white woman, Carolyn Bryant, and he got lynched, and then Carolyn Bryant admits to fabricated the story. Number five, I don't consider this current health pandemic to be the leading threat to black people since it's surpassed by things like shootings, diabetes, heart disease, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, and other ailments that we have been fighting in the recent century. Number six, I am not happy about the Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act of 1994, which is Biden's Anti-Crime Bill of 1994, or the Clinton Bill of 1994, and the hundreds of thousands or more of black people who continue to be stuck in prison. I probably got the number wrong, but my point still stands. For number seven, I personally don't believe that Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, Barack Obama, or the Congressional Black Caucus, or the black upperclassmen that we call the Boule represents the black community that I know of. I mean, Obama authored DACA. What executive order did Obama create that was just as big as DACA for black people? Also, the DREAM Act is a legislation for illegal immigrants. What did black people get specifically that was big as the DREAM Act? Since DREAM Act and DACA that actually targeted, Hispanics, or at least the illegal immigrant community. And for number eight, I consider inner city shootings to be just as serious as the police shootings, and I want to solve both problems at once. For number nine, I want restitution for black people as soon as possible. I just don't want to hear any more excuses or double talk. They owe us that because of the history and the injustices has compounded, while other communities was compounding in their respective favors. So the median black wealth is heading to zero, and by 2053, it's going to be zero. Number 10, I don't really wake up worried that the Proud Boys or the Boogaloo are going to show up and kill me and my family. Can't really think of the 100 black people that they killed in the last 3+ years. I also see them as a phantom threat designed to scare black people, and I personally don't scare that easily whenever the media talks about them. Number 11, I kind of sort of consider the creation of the Black Lives Matter to be a LGBTQIA plus front organization designed to profit from the suffering of black people in order to pursue a broader leftist agenda. A long time ago, before they updated the website, back in history, I can vividly remember that nowhere in their website did they ever mention the presence of the blackfather. Plus, now that Color said that she is a trained Marxist, and the FBI had a program called COINTELPRO, or the Counterintelligence Program, that was supposed to suppress the Communist Party of the United States of America and all other revolutionary movements like the Black Panther Party for self-defense. A COINTELPRO can be, it's probably still active to this day, but it's probably in a totally different way. In a sense, well, if you know what I mean. Number 12, I'm not comfortable with Cardi B rapping about WAP and our little girls hear about it. Of course, it's the responsibility of the parents, but then again, the media partially have is partially to blame for it because they don't really, um, well, it's kind of hard for them to explain it. Of course, it's the parents' fault, but a little bit of the blame has to be on the media because the media they keep promoting, these artists that have an adverse effect on the black community. I mean, yeah, I like hip hop and all, but me personally, I'm not really a fan of Cardi B, and because I don't really like hip hop of today, because hip hop today is trash as compared to the early 2000s and before. Um, Number 13, I also believe that black fathers are an essential part of the home. Of course, someday myself, I'm going to be a black father, and I will consider myself to actually be as an essential part of a household, at least a black family. I want to raise my black family myself. Again, the Black Lives Matter website did not have black fathers in it. Number 14, I'm not a big fan of the victim mentality. Granted, we have been victimized if you check the history, but I think what I really meant to say is I think we need to be more proactive and getting stuff done and not waiting on a politician to save us. So being in a victim mentality 24/7, it's not um, beneficial for our psyche. But what I'm trying to get at is we really need to be a little bit more proactive. Number 15, I don't trust these failed schools with little black influence as the best way to educate our black children about black history. Of course, most of the things about black history I've learned was after school. I didn't know much about Tulsa, Oklahoma, like Greenwood after high school. Same thing with Greenwood. Greenwood. Same thing with Mount Bayou and I think either Alabama or Mississippi. I didn't learn about that until after high school. Same thing with the Wilmington insurrection after high school. Same thing with um, the Black Wall Street in Durham, North Carolina. That was after high school. I also didn't learn about Jackson Ward in Richmond, Virginia. That was also after high school. Number 16, I believe that Hollywood uses the media to feminize the black male and demonize those who do not approve of it. Look at all these famous black men wearing these dresses all of a sudden. Number 17, I want the black youth to know more about Dr. Claude Anderson. Of course, he written the book um, Powernomics, and he also wrote another book, Black Labor, White Wealth. I also want the black youth to know about Edward P. McCabe. I think he almost made Oklahoma to be a all black state, but he failed. Um, it was things like I think out of his control. I think I probably need to double check the story, but he have a history with Oklahoma. And then he almost made it into a all black state. O.W. Gurley, I think O.W. Gurley he founded Greenwood, and also other prominent black business people in history. Number 18, I don't like Antifa at all, and I wasn't happy that they were putting bricks um, through people's windows. Now, number 19, I don't believe an 8-year-old should be allowed to decide to change their gender. Number 20, I believe black people need to own more businesses to build wealth and to hire black people. Again, concepts back in, from this book, Powernomics, the National Plan to Empower Black America. Number 21, I believe that black people need to own more real estate and blocks of the city and have land. Number 22, I believe black people should be active in the financial markets, as in owning stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and etc. And also, I believe that black people should be active in buying precious metals like gold and silver. Like here, I have a piece of silver from the American Precious Metal Exchange, APMEX. So I have a few silver and a few gold. And lastly, number 23, I also believe that black people should also be allowed to patent their ideas and their creativity. And those are my main reasons why I'm not really a Democrat. Because again, even though that I'm black and I'm supposed to, that doesn't really make it logical for me to actually vote Democrat. And it doesn't really make me a Republican supporter either. And I don't support Republicans at all. Again, just like how I said earlier, The logic of you calling me a Republican Trump supporter because I want to support the Republicans is kind of backwards, and you know deep down. Okay, why won't I identify as a Republican? For one, I am not a Christian at all. I'm non-religious, and I'm a staunch supporter of separation in church and state. Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion or prohibit the exercise free of. President John F. Kennedy, the 35th President of the United States, in his address to the Greater Houston Minstrel on September 12, 1960, addressed the question directly, saying, "I believe in America where the separation of church and state is absolute." And Ronald Reagan, president, he gave a speech at the Temple of Hillel and community leaders in Valley Stream on October 26, 1984. And he's credited for bringing back conservatism to the mainstream. Reagan said, "We in the United States, above all, must remember that lesson, for we were founded as a nation of openness to people of all beliefs, and so we must remain. Our very unity has been strengthened by our pluralism. We establish no religion in this country. We command no worship. We mandate no belief, nor will we ever. Church and state are and must remain separate. All are free to believe or not believe. All are free to practice a faith or not. And those who believe are free and should be free to speak of and act on their belief." And also, number two, the Republican Party openly doesn't have a black agenda. But Republican President Donald Trump signed Executive Order 13872, which is an executive order on the economic empowerment of Asian Americans and the Pacific Islanders back in May 2019. Number three, I don't believe that America should be the world's policeman. Just like how I alluded to earlier, I believe in a non-interventionist foreign policy. Um, Number four, Republicans have historically supported the war on drugs, which I do not support at all, because of my identity politics on empowering the black community. And also, I'm not a gun nut. I mean, I do support the right to bear arms, but I can't really relate to the culture of conservatives who are really gun nuts. Like, they be buying like hundreds and thousands of guns. I mean, though it's not really a good point, but of course I've be seeing memes on social media where they're gonna like dedicate like a corner of their house to be like regular, and then they're gonna dedicate like the rest like to being like an armory like full of guns. I'm like, yeah, that's kind of weird. So yeah, I'm not a gun nut like that. And of course, people say that the ancestors died for my right to vote, and my response to that is, well, our black ancestors didn't really die for our right to vote. They died fighting for a better quality of life, which they thought could be achieved through voting, which is a very big difference. Now, if you believe that our ancestors really did die for us to vote, then you wouldn't vote from the perspective of voting for the lesser of two evils. Because if you're Christian and you vote for the lesser of two evils, you're still voting for evil, whether you know it or not. And would you really think that Jesus Christ or God would approve you voting for evil and you're a Christian? Come on. And number two, if you believe that our ancestors died for to give their descendants the right to vote, then you would withhold your vote when a candidate refused to put in writing or speaking double talk, as in they're talking but they're not really saying anything. What they are really going to give black people in exchange for their vote? Number three, if you believe that our ancestors died for you to go to the polls, then you would have no problem sitting out in an election when no candidate exists that would represent black people's best interests. And number four, if you truly believe your ancestors' blood, sweat, tears paved the way for you to vote, then you would look back with unfiltered eyes and see what casting the votes in the past actually produced for black people today. So to conclude, that is my commentary on the 2020 U.S. presidential election, let alone American politics in general, and all elections past, the elections that are going on right now, and well, that's going to be taking place next year because the current year is 2021, and then 2022 is going to be the midterms and for the future. I see things a little bit differently because I actually see things from esoteric and occultic knowledge. I probably might do another video on that, But it's going to be a little bit tricky for certain people to understand because some, again, just like how I alluded to earlier, some people would say that it's conspiracy theories, and then those who are religious are going to say it's Satanism, but it's not. But the elite and the powers that be, and then like the New World Order and the Illuminati, they're well versed in the esoteric and occult knowledge. Um, Also, money control politics. You see it through the super PACs and Citizens United versus the FEC, and also the failure of the two-party system that we have, Democrats versus Republicans, but they don't allow strong polling independent candidates, and independent candidates or candidates that are not affiliated with a particular party, and they also do not allow their party candidates to be involved in the they are involved, but you don't really see them on TV that often as compared to Republicans and Democrats. So essentially, I just stay in my lane, self-develop, trying to build wealth and have a long-term view of my personal goals. Many Black people want us to come together as a collective. I would only on the condition that they have esoteric knowledge and occultic knowledge and employ Dr. Clyde Anderson's concepts of powernomics, which is this book right here. If they don't, and then I don't want anything to do with that Black collective effort because it's going to crash and burn as usual. So again, my name is Nathan L. Dawson Jr. This is Dawson Discussions, and I will see you next time. Take care.